Hello, everyone. There we go. I did a PowerPoint presentation, not because I thought you needed the direction, but because if I don't have it, I'll stand up here for an hour and tell you stories. That's what politicians do. So this is for me, not necessarily for you, but I do want you to take part in that. First of all, as everyone else has said, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for indulging me with sharing in my conversation and the experiences of Iowa. I hope the presentation I bring to you today will inspire you in ways that will help you to defend life where you are. There is stiff opposition, but I believe that in generations to come that they will acknowledge this truly as the human rights violation of this generation. And so for us to be the ones defending it is important. There we go. I put up here the background of the Roe v. Wade decision. As most of you probably are aware, that is the decision in 1973 that essentially legalized abortion and enshrined it as a right in the United States of America. I was born, I'm telling you how old I am here, don't hold it against me, and I'm not going to tell you how much I weigh next. But I was born in 1975, and as you can clearly see, that's after the Roe v. Wade decision. My mother was 40 when I was born and was probably advised that perhaps she would be better off aborting me. My entire life, my entire existence has been overshadowed by the Roe v. Wade decision. My mother could have chosen that I had no value to the world around us. Unfortunately, the U.S., which should be the shining light for all nations for defending each and every individual's right to their own life around the world, has been among the least willing to protect the unborn because of this court decision from 1973. The United States of America, as many of you may know, but I'll give you a little bit of a geopolitical background just because we are a little different from the other nations who have spoken before me. We're a federal republic, which means that to the extent not prohibited by federal law, states are designed to be governed autonomously. They can mind their own affairs. And so this is why you see different laws and regulations governing abortion and other things around each state. But the Roe decision violated that division of power that had historically been extended to states for their autonomy. And it's resulted in nearly 50 years of unchecked violence against the unborn. But in 2003, state legislatures stood up. We began the long process to regain our legal authority to protect our own citizens, those preborn citizens. You can't read this, but you can see it. And what I want you to see here is this is a timeline from 2003 of pro-life legislation that began being passed in the United States. And what you can see is that it started slow, small bits and pieces. It started with trigger bans. It started with waiting periods before you could obtain an abortion. It started with ultrasound requirements. It started with late-term pregnancy bans. But in 2018, you can see where that activity explodes. In 2018, state legislatures, including my own state of Iowa, undertook in earnest an effort to overturn the Roe v. Wade decision because we knew that, frankly, that's where we would be able to regain our autonomy and begin that protection of our preborn. What was different about Iowa's bill was that we turned the conversation on its head. We turned the conversation from one that had previously been about regulating that procedure, the trigger bans, the late-term abortion bans, the ultrasound requirements. We went from those nibbling around the edges that are just regulating a procedure to a full-on effort that was about defining a life. We went to the place where we said that a human being has rights separate from her mother. And so when we stopped talking about regulating a procedure and started talking about the civil rights of an unborn individual, it changed the tone and the tenor of the conversation. It was important in Iowa to have abortion restrictions that were easily defended. So often we try to complicate the issue. We try to put timelines in place. We try to do all the things that we think will save this next life. And it does matter to save one life. But we wanted something that would be logical and easily defended. And while I and many of my colleagues contend that human life begins at conception with the creation of unique DNA, we ultimately chose to advance the fetal heartbeat bill. It is difficult to intellectually argue against a heartbeat being the indicator of life. It is a visual and physical manifestation of a life. In floor debate on the Senate, I managed this bill in the Senate, and in floor debate on the Senate, I talked about my own experiences. So often we hear people say, "You can't tell me what to do with my body, you don't know. Old white men have no business talking about my uterus." Well, let me tell you what, I'm not an old white man. I do know what you're going through. I've been there and I've lived it. I talked on the floor of the Senate about my experience at 19 years old, finding myself pregnant, unplanned, unprepared, unsure where to go. But the very first doctor's appointment, those prenatal visits you do, they took that little gadget, the sonogram, and they put it on my belly, and you couldn't even tell I was pregnant. But I heard a heartbeat, and I knew there was a human being involved. That wasn't me. And after the bill passed in Iowa, state after state began passing similar bold laws and constitutional amendments designed specifically to defend our preborn citizens. I'd like to talk with you because here's where the conversation gets a little sticky for Iowa. I'd like to talk to you about where we stand today. Iowa's laws, including that centerpiece heartbeat bill, our opponents were smart and they sued us in state court rather than federal court. Each of our bills have faced court challenges and opposition, and our Supreme Court ruled that our state constitution includes an implied fundamental right to an abortion, and so that this means that our fight in Iowa continues. It is far from over. Let me go back. That first bill was a 20-week abortion ban, and I just want to share briefly, it's not in my notes, so here I go storytelling. There was a couple who were able to adopt a child because her mother did not turn 18 and her parents wouldn't consent to an abortion before she reached that 20-week gestation. And I get a picture every year on this baby girl's birthday that she exists because of the work we've done. The next bill there we go. The next bill is that I want to talk about is a fetal body part and heartbeat legislation, and this has also been stalled out in courts. And I've included these just to tell you that sometimes the work you do isn't ultimately what fixes the problem. But we are still fighting the battle. So in response to these court battles, we've worked diligently to improve our judicial nominating process so that those who espouse a constitutionalist view of judicial review could be appointed to our state court system. And that's really a really important place to start. We have to have a court system that acknowledges the letter of the law rather than the feeling of the law. In addition to that, we've passed this bill that, not that bill, this bill that deals specifically with the requirement that a woman seeking an abortion must have undergone an ultrasound, been given an opportunity to see it, and been provided with information regarding continuing the pregnancy and adoption, and it includes a 24-hour waiting period. The original bill that upended our Constitution, upended our law, had a 72-hour waiting period that was ruled unconstitutional, and where they said that the right to the abortion was included. So we decided that we would try to send them another try. That not 72 hours, how about 24 hours, in an attempt to get this back before our state courts. And should that fail, we are working, we've begun the long-term process of amending our Constitution to undo that damage and let it be known that our Constitution does not include that right. But even in the face of our challenges, there we go. Even in the face of our challenges, even in the opposition to the work we've done, I want to bring you the encouragement. Because while our laws were challenged and overturned, the work we did has not gone without reward. That same year, after we passed our heartbeat bill, the state of Mississippi passed a 15-week ban. And that law has made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. That 2018 legislation from Mississippi, the statute that bans abortion after 15 weeks, is right now before the Supreme Court in an attempt to overturn Roe v. Wade. And their Attorney General has said this is a direct challenge, and it's intended to be a direct challenge. It is our right to protect our citizens. So if Roe is overturned, then states are in control again. What you all know, the conversation that everyone talks about, is that on May 2nd, 2022, a leaked draft of the opinion in the Dobbs v. Jackson women's health case indicates that a majority of the court is prepared to overturn Roe v. Wade. I'd like to read directly from that leaked opinion, if I may, that's written by Justice Samuel Alito. He says, quote, "We would hold that Roe and Casey must be overturned. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one on which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely." If this leaked decision holds true, each state in the United States will be responsible for determining how they move forward regarding life. And many states are already in a position to protect life from the moment of its passage, with the trigger bans that are poised to offer full protection to the preborn life. As I said, Iowa continues the fight. Even if Roe is overturned, we still have work ahead of us. And to that end, we've begun the process of amending our Constitution to defend life. It is a multi-year process, but we are unwavering in our commitment to see it through. And as I close, it's important to note, Lola, I so appreciated your scales, your timelines, your red to green. It's important to note that that Iowa didn't start with the heartbeat bill. As I indicated to you in those laws that were passed, we started with an ultrasound requirement, and we changed it from no ban at late-term abortions to a 20-week ban. And we defunded Planned Parenthood, if you will. We directed our family planning dollars to facilities that did not offer abortion. We started at nibbling away around the edges because long-term sustainable change and defense of life doesn't start from a legislative decree, but it starts by slowly and methodically changing the hearts and minds of and opinions of people about the value of human life, and that's what Iowa did. I would also like to say that being pro-life is certainly more than just being pro-birth. And all of you in this room, I assume, agree with me. I've worked throughout my Senate career to improve educational opportunities for children, because that is indeed the great equalizer. I've worked to promote holistic women's health care, so that there's health care available to women both before, during, and after a pregnancy. I've worked to combat human trafficking, both from a sex trafficking as well as a labor trafficking side of that situation, and to strengthen victims' rights related to it. And I've supported the parents' rights to raise and educate their children as they see fit. But even though all of that is true about being pro-life, underlying it all, we must understand that the logical beginning point of a society to defend their most essential and fundamental freedoms, their most essential rights, begins with the right of one's own life. And it's the society's job, it's our civil duty to defend the defenseless. And so we begin there. Thank you all very much for the time listening to me.